Okay, so I am Dr. Sandra Miles, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm the founder of a consulting organization called the DSM Initiatives. So I work with a lot of leaders and organizations and training on having difficult conversations, talking about diversity, thinking about diversity in new ways. And so hopefully that's the conversation that we will have today. So not to be patronizing, but this is how I start off all of my presentations. I try to start with some ground rules because working with college students, that's my background. I worked in higher education for almost 20 years. And what I learned is that when you enter a conversation assuming that we're all on the same page, it rarely goes the way you think it will. So starting off, I just want to be clear that my frame of reference as a presenter is from working as a career administrator in higher education in the southern and midwestern regions of the United States. I'm also hoping that we can all agree that the point of this is not for me to teach you how to not be racist or biased. That kind of thing doesn't occur in one session. But also that you know that I'm not here to accuse anyone of being racist or biased. This really is an open conversation where I'm sharing some ideas that I think are important. I will also assume that everyone here is a good person, so we can just let that go. No, there is no judgment here. You do not have to feel like you need to defend yourself or your humanity as I say things that may or may not resonate with you or sound like things you may have seen or heard from your. And by giving grace, I am not suggesting that you should allow someone to demean you and then say, but I'm going to give you grace. Unfortunately, that's what grace has turned into, but that's not what I mean when I say it. When I say we will give grace, I personally will give grace for your emotions. If you do feel frustrated, if you get angry and you act out in that anger, I will give you grace and understand that for a lot of people, this particular topic is personal and emotional. And so I will give you that grace, and I hope that you will give each other that grace as well. Okay, so now, topic at hand. Even though the title is Diversity of Thought is Not Enough, truthfully, that's the point. That is why we encourage diversities, because that's what we're seeking. We are seeking diversity of thought and diversity of experiences. And unfortunately, what I have found is that a lot of times whenever someone uses the phrase diversity of thought, they are using it to explain why there is no other form of diversity present in the room. And so it's like, well, it doesn't matter that we're all women. We have diversity of thought. Okay. Well, how about if you tried, you might interact with people from different races, genders, socioeconomic backgrounds who have different perspectives and will also have diversity of thought. So if diversity of thought is always the goal, and I'm not here to tell you not to care about diversity of thought, why are we here? We're here for part of the reason I just stated. Diversity of thought generally, unfortunately, has become somewhat of a cop-out. So when everyone around the room feels comfortable with each other, you might say, you know that Jane, she's really too opinionated, but she's really good at what she does. And what that usually means for Jane is that even though she's going to continue to annoy most people, she will also continue to keep her job, continue to be allowed to get opportunities to be successful, because whoever is making the decision that she's really good at her job is also making a decision that they relate to her enough in a way that they trust that they will allow her to continue to kind of get on people's nerves. But when you say it in the reverse, you know, they're good, but I'm tired of always having to answer all these questions, or they're good, but they always have a why this or a why that. Well, when we talk about those people, generally, those people are very different from us. And those people turn out to not really be a good fit for the culture. It's not that they are not also bringing a diversity of thought. They're bringing a diversity of something else that's making us uncomfortable, that we haven't quite put our finger on, or we have put our finger on it and we would never say it out loud. And that's why we say they're just not a good fit for the culture. So the reason I say diversity of thought is not enough is because we rarely accept diversity of thought when it comes from people who have different race, age, gender, ability level, or insert whatever difference makes you the most uncomfortable. Because it's not just that my idea is different, but my idea is different in this different packaging that wasn't expected. And, God forbid they think that I'm just there for the quota. Well, then the only reason I'm supposed to be there is to be Black and to be a woman. I'm not supposed to be there to be thinking and talking and disagreeing, right? So this is the reason why we have to get past this scapegoat of, well, as long as we have diversity of thought, everything is fine. Because if all we have is diversity of thought and no other kind of diversity, there is a major problem occurring. So we don't want to be canceled, right? No, I certainly don't. We don't want to be canceled for saying the wrong thing once or twice or over the course of our entire lives when it's documented and all of that. But that is essentially what we do when someone is different and they enter a space and they bring in their version of diversity of thought. We think that their diversity of thought is just them not being a team player or not being a good fit for the culture. And then that person, maybe they aren't a good fit for the culture, but that person then becomes the reason why no one else who looks like them or is different like them would likely be a good fit for the culture, because we associate the thing we didn't like with the thing that we can see the fastest. Is this making sense? Or am I just like boring you to tears? Okay. I'm not gonna stop, but no, I'm just kidding. So now what? You got all the problems. Hope you wrote them down. Hope you're gonna avoid them for the rest of your life. But what do you do now? Well, first, let's stop saying we don't see color or gender, or unless you legitimately have some type of ocular degeneration or something's wrong with you. Let's stop using that as like a compliment. Like, well, I don't care if you're purple or green. First of all, you should, because if I'm purple, I need medical attention. So that's one thing. Secondly, I am not asking to be invisible. I don't mind. In fact, I am glad you can see exactly what color I am. I'm not asking for you to not notice that I am a woman. Why would you not see that? What I am asking is that you don't think you know who I am as a human being because you see that I am a Black woman. That you don't think you know exactly how I'm going to respond to a situation, or my intellectual capacity, or my willingness to connect with different human beings simply based on what you see. In the same way that you don't want anyone to look at you and think they know everything about you, right? In any event, we want to make sure that we are embracing individuals as individuals. And I included embrace this concept of cultural humility, because cultural competency is separate and it's important, understanding, learning more about different cultures. But cultural humility is essentially saying, I will never know enough about your culture to act with confidence as if I know who you are simply based on your culture. Take the lead, right? Which was also on the other slide, but I forgot to say it. As a leader, don't be afraid of this thing called reverse racism, that if you focus on diversity of all the things, well, now you're really moving forward with something called reverse racism. First of all, that is not a real thing. There's no such thing as reverse racism. The reverse of racism is, drum roll, fairness. Okay? If you are a white person who is discriminated in hiring or any other way, discriminated against in any other way, simply based on your race, then you have experienced racism. We don't have to come up with a new name for it just because it happened to you. The other thing that the phrase reverse racism suggests is that you believe racism is supposed to happen to certain people. And when it happens to you, well, now it's something new. So, no, we don't believe that, do we? Of course not. And I come in and someone says to me, and they are being very genuine and very nice, and they're so excited to finally be on a board that is diverse, because I was on it. I was one of 2 people of color and one of 3 women, the only black person on the board. The other person of color, if you just looked at them, you wouldn't, I guess you call that racially ambiguous. They looked white, but they were not. Or at least they did not identify as white. And so I laughed. I laughed internally. I did not laugh in this person's face. But then I asked the question, I said, so how are we defining diversity? Because bringing one person of color in a room does not make it diverse. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not aware of that. If you have a room that only has one person who is different, you are still in a room that is not diverse. And so having this idea or this thought process that we're just going to grab a person who looks differently, and again, as long as they think like us, because we don't really accept diversity of thought from people who look different, then now we've done our job and we've done our part. We don't need to continue to try. And what I'm suggesting to you is we can focus on merit all day. That's fine, because there are lots of people who of different races, genders, ability levels, socioeconomic backgrounds, all those things who have merit. Those 2 things are not mutually exclusive. So I think this is my last one. Let's not focus on the business case for diversity as like our champion. There's nothing wrong. The business case for diversity is real. And I'm not saying there is no business case for diversity. Of course, there is a business case for diversity. But if that is the only thing that sells you, then that is also kind of problematic because, again, I'm from the United States. There was a business case for another form of diversity a long time ago that started the Civil War. So only seeing people as an opportunity to make you profit is not a compliment. In addition to the business case for diversity, we also need to be willing to wrestle with the real human case for diversity, because there are so many people who have a lot to offer that have not been given opportunities to share that, or only get one opportunity, and then the minute they make you slightly uncomfortable, you got to get rid of them, anybody who looks like them or reminds you of them. About being inclusive, when we talk about bringing more people in, when we talk about allowing for diversity of thought that also happens to come in a body that is diverse, we need to make sure we're allowing those people to come in and be whole human beings. Meaning, what emotions are we willing to accept from women, from men, from people of color? So we really want to make sure that we are not only wanting to express our full emotions, but will we allow other people to express theirs? And that's a real question too. You don't have to allow every emotion. At Disney, you are not allowed to be angry at Disney. And that has nothing to do with diversity. That's their culture. You have to be happy, you have to be helpful. But if you're not trying to be at the Disney level of happy and helpful, then maybe it could be useful to allow your staff to sometimes get frustrated with you and not assume that it's a form of disrespect, or not assume that they can't handle themselves or they're unprofessional. Maybe they're just having a human experience. You know, we want everyone to offer us grace. I call you by the wrong name. Oh, please forgive me. I use the wrong pronoun. Oh, I'm so sorry. Don't make a big deal out of that. But are we willing to exchange that grace, right? Are we willing to remove that necessity from that person? Oh my goodness, I used the wrong pronoun. I should do better. Not force them to accept what feels very demeaning and dehumanizing. I'll give one small, I think this is a quick story. I'll make it quick. I've been a chief diversity officer at a couple campuses, and once I brought in a speaker who was gender nonconforming and used the pronouns they, them. And this was years ago, so they, them was still fairly new, and it's not that I didn't respect it, I just wasn't trying hard enough, to be honest. I would mess it up, I called them him, and then I would be very dramatic and say, oh no, not he, not him, they, that, you know, I was really, you know, making a mess of the whole thing. And it kept happening, and I kept apologizing until at some point during the day, they stopped using she, her pronouns with me, and they only used they, them pronouns. The first time they referred to me as they, I was like, did I just, what? The second time, I got a little annoyed. I was like, are they doing this on purpose? In my mind. The third time I was like, oh my God, they are doing this on purpose. And this is exactly how they have been feeling all day. And miraculously, I stopped having an issue using they, them pronouns because it became important enough for me to try. So those are the kinds of things that I am trying to encourage with this bigger picture than just, oh, as long as we have diversity of thought, because generally it means that we're really not interested in feeling uncomfortable or being around people who offer a different kind of diversity. So I think that is, yeah, that's all I have. Thank you so much. And I came in under the minute. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you got something out of it. Thank you so much. Is that it?